But right now, I want to get into a subject that is just of paramount importance. And I want people to understand out there, I want viewers to understand out there, that this is so extreme, so naked in its tyranny and its illegality, that it boggles the mind that this is being done out in the open. Remember just 3.5 years ago, Bush was getting up at press conferences saying, I promise we're not spying on American people without warrants. And then just a month later it came out that the NSA had giant snooping hubs in every major telecommunications facility, and that all communications are being run through these different forms of keyword software, and that these different files and algorithms and relationship actuaries of how different groups of people interact with each other, how corporations interact with each other, to really be able to understand trends in society so that the insiders literally have a crystal ball type effect to be able to manipulate and control society. And it's an unfair trade advantage against competitors to the globalist, whether it's private, corporate, or government. And, of course, it's all completely illegal. So they've gone from a decade ago, torture being wrong, to torture being good. They've gone from a decade ago, the UN and DynCorp getting in trouble, running child kidnapping rings, to now it's just mainstream news and they don't get in trouble. They've gone from a decade ago to denying that the NSA even existed or that Echelon even existed. I mean, I've had newspapers make fun of me 15 years ago for talking about the NSA even existing. Oh, that kook says the government's listening to us. Well, that's ridiculous. Everybody knows that that's illegal. To now, it's just in your face. But the new information that has come out has confirmed everything we already knew in our analysis, and confirmed it's worse than what I had even said. You know, one of the popular COINTELPRO memes is to say that I exaggerate or that I'm a fearmonger. Well, if you think impending war with Iran isn't something to be concerned about, fine, I'm a fearmonger. If you think having offshore banks that have stolen tens of trillions of dollars and have now been given total power over the economy, and the SEC cannot be investigated now, completely run by these bankers, if that doesn't scare you, okay, I'm a fearmonger. If you're not concerned about bisphenol A, admittedly, in printer ink and in almost every plastic that your food is contained in that you buy, and that things that you're drinking out of and that you're becoming sterilized, on record, I mean, they admit it, but I'm still the fearmonger. No, the truth is you've got a lot of people who got into denial about what's happening. And so now that all of this stuff is just being admitted, they can't come back to themselves and own up to the fact that they were wrong, and own up to the fact that we really are in trouble, that we're facing a scientific tyranny. They just can't do that. They are too cowardly. They are too afraid to be able to do that. And it's just so sad, because if people would just wake up and recognize the level of tyranny that we're living under, and if we just came to our senses and admitted to ourselves that this is outrageously illegitimate, outrageously criminal, outrageously unconstitutional, outrageously illegal. It's off the charts, the amount of stealing and thieving and corruption that's going on. But because the system thinks that you're a bunch of passive cowards, they'll come out in Bloomberg and go, yeah, every major insurance company is now taking people's insurance money and keeping it and not giving it to them when they die, to their families, including veterans. They'll now come right out and say, yes, the banks are stealing tens of trillions and no one's going to get in trouble. In fact, they're going to get more power. On every front, we are in the collapse. The system has made the decision to loot everything, and that they've been given the green light to go completely criminal and rogue. The information that I'm going to cover after the break, coming up here in a few minutes, is so illegal, is so criminal. On its face, it is worse than the East German Stasi. Up until this time in history, the most authoritarian, the most oppressive, the most surveilled society in human history. That is now completely eclipsed, completely dwarfed by what's going on, and the media is now selling you this. Just like when they knew you were scared of 9/11, they sold you torture and told you that, yes, in the Washington Post, they talked to one of the CIA section chiefs, and he said, this is my film Road to Tyranny, he said, yes, we torture people's children in front of their parents. And the media said, that's wholesome, that's good. They're trying to set a common law, public precedent, and they're doing this so their agents will carry out these type of crimes because they've been told, look, it's even in the newspaper. You're allowed to do this now. And it's the same thing with InfraGard and the Total Information Awareness Network, known as the Top Secret USA report. And they have come out and admitted that private contractors by the hundreds of thousands in IT alone have been given total power to violate all of your privacy and all of your rights and to hack people's computers and to dial in to the computer networks and to control everything. And the media is spinning this like, oh, they're these great little heroes, and we hope they don't get in trouble from the government, when they go on to admit that the former director of the NSA runs this program. Remember when the Total Information Awareness Network was exposed in 2002, that a government agency was data mining all of your data and surveilling everything you do with the convicted felon, Admiral Poindexter. And then it came out in the news that, oh, now they've moved into private offices around the country and they're using private contractors to do it. That's the key here. And if you read the Cybersecurity Act, everything in the Cybersecurity Act is already being implemented. It's just like if you read the Emergency Centers Act, the FEMA camp, concentration camp law. Everything in that bill is what they've already set up. They're just now trying to pass the law. So when we come back, I'm going to go over this. It's incredible. They're turning the entire internet over to private corporations to run the tyranny. They're privatizing the tyranny, the private corporations. Okay, let me break all this down. Paul Watson's going to have a detailed report out by the end of the show today, where we lay out what's really happening with Top Secret USA with cybersecurity. Its first public incarnation was in 2001, where the NSA went public and said, we are data mining everything you do. It's all illegal, but we're doing it to protect you from terrorists. Now, they've admitted that they are surveilling corporations, businesses, men and women in the armed services, radio talk show hosts, members of Congress. They've reported that Google is spying on members of Congress, that MI6 is spying on members of the British Parliament. It's the unelected, corporate-infiltrated, and controlled private bureaucracy being given government power. And you've got all these yuppies and people on incredible power trips. As the Pentagon admits, they are converting massive resources over to, quote, cyber war. And Cass Sunstein at the White House and others, the Pentagon admits, it is war against the American people. It is info war using lies and deception. And they now admit in Forbes that it was InfraGard. Remember 4 years ago it came out that they're given license to kill powers? If you work at a power plant, or you work in building highways, or you work in thousands of different positions in, quote, infrastructure protection, you are given private secret badges and codes. I've talked to people mid-level at LCRA, which is a private quasi-government group that runs our water supplies in Central Texas and is jacking up the prices, I would add. It's part of a takeover of the resources. It's scientific boss hogism, basically. And they're given high-level security clearances. It's just everywhere. Now, let's start at the beginning. Here is William Safire, the late William Safire. You are a suspect, New York Times, November 14th, 2002, and then I'll get into all the latest information. If the Homeland Security Act is not amended before passage, here is what will happen to you. Every purchase you make with a credit card, every magazine subscription you buy, and medical prescription you fill, every website you visit, an email you send or receive, every academic grade you receive, every bank deposit you make, every trip you book, and every event you attend, all these transactions and communications will go into what the Defense Department describes as a virtual, centralized, grand database. And we went and pulled up the articles in the last couple of years where they now put it in place. Now, the Homeland Security Act was amended, so they made it private to be outside of that, but it's still totally illegal. To this computerized dossier of your private life, from commercial sources, add every piece of information the government has about you, passport applications, driver's license, bridge toll records, judicial and divorce records, complaints from nosy neighbors of the FBI,